Jasmine relied on digital logic to navigate her professional life in Philadelphia. Late one night, her secure home office transformed into a claustrophobic trap when harsh red warning lights flooded her monitors. Attempting to access her professional accounts, she faced an absolute lockout. Then a direct message appeared on the frozen screen, time-stamped 3 years in the past. Her analytical mind rejected the impossible date, but the system refused to yield. How could she fight a phantom when the system itself was rewriting her past?
The Philadelphia night pressed heavily against the windows of the dark home office. Jasmine sat rigidly in her ergonomic chair, the only illumination coming from the harsh, pulsing red warning lights reflecting off her monitors. As a retired UX researcher who still consulted on complex system architectures to supplement her fixed retirement income, she trusted logic and observable facts above all else. Tonight, those facts were failing her. She remembered the countless hours she had spent designing these very interfaces, ensuring they were intuitive and secure for users of all ages. Now, the system she once helped build was turning against her, locking her out of the very accounts that managed her consulting payments and retirement funds. She realized that her entire professional reputation, built over 4 decades of meticulous work, was hanging by a fragile digital thread. She typed her credentials into the professional portal, her fingers moving with practiced precision despite her 68 years. The screen flashed a violent crimson. Access denied. She tried again, adjusting her reading glasses to squint at the sharp contrast. Access denied. A cold knot of anxiety tightened in her chest. She leaned closer, analyzing the error codes, searching for a logical explanation for this sudden barrier. Suddenly, the frozen interface shifted. A direct message notification slid into the corner of the locked screen. Jasmine stared at the sender details, then at the timestamp. The message was dated exactly 3 years in the past, a time when she was still working full-time at the university. Her breath hitched. The date was physically impossible. The current portal system had not even existed 3 years ago. She whispered to the empty room that the timestamp was a glitch, a mere rendering error caused by an outdated cache. Her trembling fingers hovered over the keyboard, desperate to refresh the page and force the system to correct its obvious mistake. But the screen remained locked, the impossible past date message glowing with mocking permanence. Her analytical mind demanded a rational explanation, perhaps a server synchronization error or a corrupted display bug. Yet the rising panic in her throat screamed that her digital reality was collapsing. She slammed her palms against the desk, the sharp sound echoing in the claustrophobic space. If the system claimed this impossible history was real, then her entire timeline was a lie. The red lights continued to pulse, casting long, distorted shadows across the room, making the familiar space feel like an alien landscape. The cold glow of the locked monitor illuminated her pale face, highlighting the deep lines of stress forming around her eyes. She took a shaky breath, trying to steady her racing heart. Jasmine stared at the frozen monitor, waiting for a glitch that never came. She needed to find a way out of this digital nightmare before the morning sun rose over the city. Her digital identity was fundamentally compromised, hijacked by a phantom that could rewrite time itself. The lockout was absolute, and the fabricated timestamp proved she was entirely trapped.
Jasmine fled the claustrophobic darkness of her home office, the pulsing red glare still burning in her retinas. She needed answers, something tangible to anchor her fracturing reality. The early morning air of Philadelphia was crisp as she hurried toward the campus security corridor, where she still held an emeritus advisory role, her coat pulled tight against the chill. She remembered the countless hours she had spent walking these same halls, attending faculty meetings, and reviewing security protocols with the administration. Now those same halls were her only refuge from the digital storm raging in her home office. The transition was jarring. The harsh, sterile, fluorescent lights of the hallway felt like a physical shock after the oppressive shadows of her workspace. She found Eric near the monitoring station, a man she had known for over a decade. As the observant groundskeeper who often assisted with perimeter checks and physical security logs, he was already reviewing the camera feeds on a secondary terminal. Jasmine leaned against the doorframe, her knuckles turning white as she gripped the edge of the wood. "My timeline is a lie," she whispered, her voice trembling but precise. "The screen claims I was active at midnight, but the system did not even exist then." Eric did not look up immediately, his focus entirely on the scrolling text of the physical badge reader logs for the central server room, his movements meticulous and grounded. "The badge reader shows 0 entries," he stated, tapping the screen with a steady finger. "No one physically entered the room during the alleged breach. Your screen is lying." The stark reality of his words washed over her, grounding her floating anxiety back to the solid floor. The digital panic that had gripped her chest began to loosen, replaced by a cold, analytical clarity. If no one had accessed the physical servers, the impossible timestamps were a fabricated illusion, a sophisticated projection designed to make her doubt her own sanity. She stared at the physical access logs, the undeniable proof of an empty room. Her digital identity was compromised, not by a physical intruder, but by a phantom manipulating the network perception of time. She had to trust this tangible, physical world evidence over the deceptive glow of her monitors. The hijacker was hiding in the code, rewriting history without ever touching the hardware, turning her own professional legacy into a weapon against her. Jasmine took a deep breath, the sterile air filling her lungs. She was no longer just a victim of a digital lockout. She was a researcher tracing a ghost through physical footprints. The screen was lying, but the concrete reality of the campus security logs was her only way forward. She turned away from the monitors, her mind shifting from panic to focused determination. If the digital timestamps were entirely fake, she needed to find out how the hijacker bypassed the physical security of her accounts without leaving a single trace.
The campus security room was a sterile box of humming servers and cold air, a place where physical reality was supposed to be absolute. Jasmine sat rigidly beside Shannon, the meticulous janitor who also managed the physical archive drives. She pulled her wool coat tighter around her shoulders, the chill of the room seeping into her bones and reminding her of her vulnerability. The transition from the hallway had been abrupt, but Jasmine needed more than just badge reader logs. She needed the raw visual feeds to prove her sanity. The faint smell of ozone and dust hung in the air, a stark contrast to the sterile digital environment she had been trapped in. Shannon adjusted the secondary monitor, his movements precise and unhurried. The glow of the screen painted his focused face in pale blue light, highlighting the deep lines of concentration around his eyes. Jasmine pointed a trembling finger at the frozen interface from her office, still mirrored on the main display. She explained the fabricated direct messages, the impossible dates from 3 years ago that had hijacked her professional identity. Shannon nodded slowly, his eyes tracking the digital anomaly before he typed a deliberate sequence into the archive terminal. He was pulling the raw physical camera logs from the server room corridor, the tangible footage that should have proven the digital timestamps were a lie. The progress bar crawled across the screen in agonizing increments, each percentage point feeling like a physical weight pressing down on her chest. Jasmine held her breath, her knuckles white as she gripped the edge of the desk, waiting for the grounding reality of an empty hallway to anchor her fracturing mind. She watched the digital wheel spin, praying for the mundane reality of an empty hallway to validate her experience. The video feed finally loaded, grainy and black and white, showing the empty corridor with its familiar scuffed floors and illuminated exit signs. But as the metadata populated the side panel, Jasmine's breath hitched. She leaned closer, her analytical mind struggling to process the visual data. The timestamp in the corner of the physical camera feed did not match the current date. It was frozen at the exact same impossible pass date from her hijacked screen. 3 years ago, the exact same fabricated history. Shannon tapped the glass of the monitor with a steady finger. "Look at the corner of the frame," he said, his voice calm but laced with confusion. "The physical camera logged this at 3 years ago." Jasmine stared at the impossible numbers, a cold dread pooling in her stomach as the implications settled over her. The boundary between the digital illusion and physical reality was dissolving. The hijacker was not just manipulating her accounts, the fabrication had infected the physical security logs. Her reliance on objective, tangible evidence shattered completely. If the physical world was lying, there was no anchor left. The sterile air of the room suddenly felt suffocating, the hum of the servers turning into a deafening roar in her ears. She realized the system was not just locked out, it was actively rewriting the physical world to match the digital lie. she had to decide whether to trust her own eyes or sever the network entirely before the fabrication consumed everything she knew.
The oppressive shadows of the home office felt different now, heavier and more deliberate in their concealment. The sterile clarity of the security room had vanished, leaving Jasmine alone with the humming silence of her compromised workspace. The monitors still glowed with the violent crimson of the lockout, but she was no longer paralyzed by the impossible logic. She needed to sever the tie. Approaching the desk, she reached behind the primary terminal, her fingers brushing against the cold metal casing and the tangled wires that connected her to the digital trap. "The network is compromised," she stated, her voice steady and precise. Her fingers closed around the thick Ethernet cable, and she yanked it free with a sharp tug. The pulsing red warning lights died instantly, plunging the room into a heavy, suffocating darkness. The local fabrication was cut off, leaving only the faint sound of her own breathing and the distant traffic outside. Jasmine immediately retrieved her personal smartphone from her pocket. She bypassed the local network, relying entirely on the independent cellular connection to bypass the compromised hardware. The screen illuminated her face with a clean, neutral blue light, cutting through the gloom and casting long shadows against the bookshelves. She navigated to the official support verification portal, her thumb moving with renewed purpose. "I will verify my identity through the official secure portal," she whispered, anchoring herself to the tangible reality of the device in her hand. She initiated the strict identity recovery protocol. Every tap of her finger felt like a deliberate step away from the phantom and back toward her own life. The interface demanded her physical identification. She positioned her official ID card in front of the camera. The bright flash briefly illuminated the dark corners of the office and the framed degrees on the wall. The upload progress bar crawled across the screen, a thin line of green advancing millimeter by millimeter. She held her breath, waiting for the independent channel to validate her true identity. If the hijacker had truly infected the physical world, this secure portal would reject her. She kept her eyes fixed on the screen, refusing to look away from the only source of truth left in her world. The loading icon spun in a tight, endless circle, mocking her desperate need for resolution. Then the screen shifted. The portal did not confirm her identity. Instead, a new prompt materialized, demanding a live biometric scan to override a pending historical anomaly flag. The phantom had not been confined to the local router. It had already embedded itself in the central registry, waiting for her to step outside the compromised network. Jasmine stared at the blinking camera icon, the cold dread returning as she realized the trap had merely expanded. Jasmine held her breath as the phone camera activated. The bright flash illuminated the dark corners of her office, capturing her face in the independent cellular light. She kept her eyes fixed on the screen, refusing to look away from the only source of truth left in her world. The loading icon spun in a tight circle, mocking her desperate need for resolution. Then the screen shifted. The portal confirmed her identity with a crisp green banner. The strict recovery protocol had succeeded, bypassing the compromised local network entirely. Her professional accounts were instantly restored, the digital lockout shattered by the undeniable proof of her physical presence. As the primary terminal on her desk rebooted and reconnected to the sanitized network, the monitors flickered to life. A final system notification slid into the corner of the main display. It was the impossible past date direct message, displaying the fabricated timestamp one last time. But this time, the phantom illusion held no power over her. The system automatically flagged the anomaly and permanently deleted the fabricated history, wiping the impossible timeline from her registry. She reached forward and closed the laptop with a soft, definitive click, severing the last tie to the digital nightmare. The sterile anxiety of the past hours dissolved into the warm morning air. Jasmine stood up, feeling entirely grounded in the physical space of her office. She grabbed her wool coat from the back of the chair, the fabric feeling reassuringly real against her hands. Stepping away from the desk, she walked out into the bright Philadelphia morning, the golden light illuminating the hallway and contrasting with the suffocating shadows of the night. She took a deep breath, washing away the lingering tension. The city outside was waking up, providing a comforting soundtrack to her quiet victory. She paused at the threshold, listening to the distant hum of traffic and the rustle of leaves in the crisp autumn breeze. The physical world remained solid, unchanged by the digital phantom that had tried to rewrite her history. Jasmine smiled faintly, her analytical mind now sharp and focused on the day ahead.